Return to the Monsters, Inc. universe in the Disney Plus brand new series, Monsters at Work. It's laughter thereafter as we meet a brand new cast of monsters voiced by incredible stars such as Mindy Kaling, Henry Winkler, and of course, Ben Feldman as Tyler, a recently graduated scarer who quickly learns the only thing horrifying at Monsters, Inc. is how hilarious it is to be part of the team. Billy Crystal and John Goodman are back in their beloved roles as Mike and Sully. Monsters at Work. Original series now streaming, only on Disney Plus.
Anyone can be ready for back to school, but with Staples Connect, you can be more than ready. Like, I got everything from my classroom and saved a ton ready. We've got more backpacks, more pens, and more supplies than you ever thought possible. So, double knot your shoes, gas up the minivan, and smear war paint on your face. Staples has everything you need and more for the new school year. Let's do this. Just visit your nearest Staples store or go to staplesconnect.com for inspiration.
Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 123 called Amy R. Today's episode is sponsored by Medfertil by ELAN Healthcare. ELAN Healthcare is a small, women-owned and led Canadian business dedicated to the research and development of natural health supplements for male and female reproductive health. Medfertil is a once-a-day prenatal dietary supplement for couples planning to or struggling to conceive. This prenatal is enriched with vitamins and minerals, scientifically proven to increase your chances of fertility. The Medfertil for Men and Women combo package is on sale now. So if you're planning for a healthy pregnancy and you want to start Medfertil today, go to elanhealthcare.ca and use code Allison15 for an extra 15% off. Again, that's elanhealthcare.ca, ELAN healthcare.ca, and use code Allison15, ALISON15, for an extra 15% off. Thanks, Medfertil. Okay, guys, today I'm going to tell you about one of our episode sponsors, which is called Green Chef. It's the first USDA certified organic meal kit company. Green Chef makes eating well easy and affordable with plans to fit every lifestyle. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, or just looking to eat healthier, there's a range of recipes to suit any diet or preference. Ingredients come pre-measured, perfectly portioned, and mostly prepped so you can spend less time stressing and more time enjoying the delicious home-cooked meals. I can vouch personally that Green Chef is super easy and delicious. The other day, I made a recipe called Veggie and Bean Stuffed Peppers. Everything came portioned out in the box, the instructions were really easy, and 30 minutes later, I was eating a yummy, low-carb, plant-based meal. I also had leftovers. So guys, give it a try. Go to greenchef.com/infertileaf100 and use code infertileaf100 to get $100 off, including free shipping. Again, that's greenchef.com/infertileaf100 and use code infertileaf100 to get $100 off, including free shipping. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well. Thanks, Green Chef. Okay, guys, so let me tell you about my guest today. Her name is Amy, and she is a journalist and a writer who lives in Brooklyn. She is a mom, and I'm not going to tell you how many babies she has because there's kind of a surprise twist at the end of this story, but she's going to get into all of it with us today, talking about IUIs, feeling really brushed off by doctors at certain points in her journey, an ectopic pregnancy that she went through, and then 7 rounds of IVF and what happened. So I will leave it at that and let her do most of the talking. So without further ado, this is Amy's infertility story. My friend Amy, it's so good to talk to you today.
Hi, yes, so good to talk to you.
How's it going?
Good. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's going well.
I know you've written a lot about what you've been through and your fertility journey. You haven't talked about it much. So you told me before you were a little bit nervous, and I was like, well, you should be, because I'm going to make this really hard for you. Very
totally.
into
I was just
journalism.
Taking deep breaths before our call.
No, you are in such a safe space. So let's start with, did you always want to have kids? Like, what were you like growing up?
I did. It's kind of like, I did want to have kids, but in a very like vague way. Like, I guess I sort of assumed I would. And like, I have an older sister, and when we were little, we used to play moms, and we would like dress up and take care of our babies. And that was like our go-to game. And it was, so I feel like as an adult, I wasn't like counting the seconds until I could have a baby, but like, I just assumed I would. And it really wasn't until, like you learn so much about yourself through the whole process. And like, I shocked myself with how much I wanted to be a mom, as I started to discover that I am infertile. I guess I had no idea how much I wanted it, but I really, really, really wanted it more than anything.
I can completely relate to that. I was the same way. Like, I kind of always just assumed I would have kids.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I wasn't able to have my second one that I was like, oh my God, I've never fucking wanted something more in my life. Like, and it was the same thing. Like, I was like, whoa, that surprised me.
Completely.
I mean, I love being a mom, so that didn't surprise me, but it was just like the intensity of it. Like
the intensity of it. Yeah. The single-mindedness of it.
So tell me what happened when you started to try.
So
fast forwarding quite a bit from playing mommy with your sister.
So my husband, we were both 30 when we got married. And I think we were kind of like, all right, we'll be married for a year and then we'll start trying. And then a couple months shy of a year, I was like, all right, let's get the show on the road. And I went off birth control and, had the I was 31 then, and I was like, ooh, this is just going to be so fast. And like,
right. How long had you been on birth control? Was it like from 15, like me? Like
no.
When you're like, okay.
No, it was like 5 years. It was like 4 or 5 years. It was a short period of time. And I, of course, expected to get pregnant right away. And I didn't. And then my period just started becoming more and more irregular. And for the next several months, I just had this very like erratic cycle. After a few months, I went to an OBGYN, and, she was kind of like, people think they're going to get pregnant right away, and you're 31 and it'll be fine. And, she was basically like, why are you here? And
did you feel kind of brushed off?
I felt brushed off, and I felt like silly. Like I felt, I'm just trying, I kind of was like, oh, why am I here? But I thought I was just trying to be responsible. And like, it was weird to have like 56-day cycles. Before I was on birth control, my cycle was always very regular. So it was just I was sort of like, what is this? So she was like, you're fine. But like, anecdotally, some people try acupuncture and like, you can do that. So I was like, okay, done. And so I started seeing an acupuncturist. And I went every week. It was for like regulating my cycle.
Okay.
And trying to get pregnant.
And did it work? Did it do anything?
I enjoyed it. I love my acupuncturist. And she wound up being like an enormous support system for me. The OBGYN was like, until you've been trying for a full year, we're not even going to like look at you, basically.
Right.
Like we're not.
They always say that.
Yeah. So I diligently did my acupuncture for another 6 months. When I went back after the full year of trying, it was to a brand new person. And they were like, you have lots of eggs, but you're not ovulating, effectively. So
was it like a PCOS diagnosis or not?
It was, they said the word PCOS and were kind of like danced around it. It was sort of like, this is a PCOS-ish situation. But they weren't like direct about it, or I kind of didn't know what to take away from it. And I had never heard of PCOS before. So they were like, okay, we'll do Clomid. I knew something was wrong. So the acknowledgement of like the switch to medication felt very like significant to me. Again, because at this point I was like I was 32 and I was just like, what is happening? So I was like grateful for the diagnosis-ish and like the pivot to medication, but it was also sort of like, whoa, okay, you know, this isn't like acupuncture anymore. This feels like we're moving in a direction I just wasn't anticipating. And
right.
like,
it feels more official or something like that, right? Yeah.
Yes. And then like the last month of that, we did an IUI and that didn't work. And then they were basically like, okay, we can't help you anymore. And we're going to refer you to a reproductive endocrinologist, which again was like the next pivot to like the big leagues.
Right.
And it's so funny. It's like, I have this memory of like, even like way before any of this, when we first started trying, I remember like Googling fertility clinics in New York. And like, this is before I had any, like, it was just, it like sticks with me because it was like this weird, I don't know if it was like an intuitive,
like foreshadowing or something, or
Because at the time I was like, why am I even looking at this? But
did you have any friends that were like going through it or that had used clinics or?
None. Throughout my entire experience, I never knew anybody who had gone through this, was going through this. It was so lonely. And nobody in my life. And, you know, of course, I'm like in my early 30s and all my friends were getting pregnant.
Totally.
And,
you're at that sweet spot where like everybody. Yeah.
Completely. And it was, I mean, the isolation of it all was just like world altering. We switched to a reproductive endocrinologist. He was like, okay, we're going to not do Clomid. We're going to do these other drugs. We'll do a couple more IUIs. When I met with him, he was like, he also was kind of dismissive. And he's like, your eggs are 32-year-old eggs. And like, there's no clear problem. Like, you're going to get pregnant. Like, it was just very, like, I felt like being in my early 30s, almost like it was working for me, like biologically, but like in terms of the way I was viewed as a patient, I felt it wasn't serving me because I felt like nobody gave me the time of day.
Right. Right.
So we did 2 IUIs there. They didn't work. And then we moved to IVF. And that was like a huge, like, you know, a huge shift. And I was like, this feels like, you know, again, because I never knew anybody who had done IVF. I had the mistaken perception that it just sort of works, you know?
Yes,
like,
I think so many people think that.
You know, we didn't want it to come to this, but like now we're here and we're going to have a baby because we're doing IVF, and it didn't work. And when it didn't work, I'm trying to think, I turned 33 over the course of that round. And it was like the world, when it didn't work, it was just like the world stopped. At this point, I felt like I couldn't trust my body. And I also felt like I couldn't trust myself because I was so convinced every time. So I would be so sure. And then I was so wrong.
That really fucks with your head.
It really fucks with your head.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, my body is fucking with me because like I should be getting pregnant. There's no, and so this reproductive endocrinologist had also like mentioned PCOS. And I was like, can I stop you for a second? Like, do I have PCOS? Nobody has like sort of, I've heard that, but nobody has really
like definitively
definitively said it or like communicated to me like what that means. And so he's like, yeah, you know, they want to know like, yes, I have this or no, I don't have this. And he's like, really, these things are like a spectrum. So do I think you're on the spectrum of PCOS? Yes. You know, it's grayer than just yes or no. So I was like, okay. But then with the medication and the procedures, that should have like
Fixed it.
Fixed it. Yeah, that should have been enough. And so when that first round didn't work, and, like a nurse called with the news, and I was at work, and I was like sitting down for a meeting, and I walked out of the room for the meeting and took the call, and I just walked out of the building and just sobbed my little eyes out, and like called my husband and sat in Madison Square Park on a bench and just sobbed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, what is that? What is going on? And then when I went back to work, my friends were like, should we go drink? And I was like, absolutely. Yeah. So we went out and drank wine in the middle of the day.
Yes.
Yes. In the meantime, I also was like, okay, I might have PCOS. I might not have PCOS, but I'm going to act as though I do. And I eliminated, sugar and caffeine and alcohol and soy and dairy and non-whole grains. And I threw out all our chemical cleaning agents, and I switched natural beauty products. And I just did the whole
the overhaul.
The whole overhaul. I'm making over my entire life. At the end of the summer, I finally quit my job. We did a second round of IVF, and it didn't work. And those first two rounds they had put in, and that it was actually that was a frozen transfer. We had gotten a good amount of eggs from the initial retrieval. So we put in one, then we put in one. And then for our third round, we put in two. And at this point they were like, again, you're so young. And we were like, oh, we're putting in two, here we go. And then that didn't work. And then I was like, I mean, what the fuck is happening? So we sat down with our doctor, who we barely ever saw, didn't know me. He would walk by me in the hallways and had no idea that I was his patient.
Oh, that's so disheartening. Just feeling like a number or like a statistic. Yeah.
A complete
You're like,
number.
We're giving you thousands. And did you have coverage at all, or was it all out of pocket?
Yes, we did. So that was the other thing. It was the best. We happened to have the best insurance policy I have ever had in my life during the years that we did this.
Okay.
So we had great coverage. So that also, we were very fortunate, but still I know you don't know me. And he was somebody that I think had been practicing for decades and felt like you couldn't, he had seen it all, and he knew exactly what I was young and I was going to be just fine. So when we finally sat down with him after the third transfer did not work, and he's looking at his computer screen being like, okay, so let's see here. How many embryos do you have left? And he was misquoting. And I was correcting him. And I'm like, dude, you don't know, you don't care. You just don't care.
Yeah.
And after we left that appointment, and I was like, I'm going to find another doctor. So we switched clinics. I found another doctor. This was Tim's, I would say, lowest point. And he was after the third one failed, he was like, no one's ever going to be able to help us. This is not he was just he had completely lost hope. And so he was not in favor of switching clinics. He was like, they're going to be exactly the same. I don't see any point. And I was like, no, I'm not accepting this. We are not no. So, at first then I was like, you don't have to come with me to meet this other doctor, but I'm going. So he did wind up coming, and we sat down, and this doctor, who was our age, and I was like, this is so weird. I've never seen a doctor who was my own age.
Yeah.
And
that happens more and more as you get older.
Yes.
We were watching football, and I was like, how old is this fucking quarterback? He looks like he could be my son. And he's 23. And I was like, yeah, he literally could be my son. It's so depressing.
I know. It was very strange. I was like, I could have partied with this guy in high school.
Right.
Whatever. Now he's my doctor.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we sat down with him, and he was the first thing he said, he was like, I just want to tell you, I am so sorry for everything you have been through. And it was like, I just like exhaled. I felt like he saw me. He was like, you're not just a 30 whatever year old woman, like who is going to get pregnant. Like you have gone through something, and like, I see you, I acknowledge you. He was like, I have all your medical records, but like, I'd love to hear from you. Like, can you explain it to me as you have experienced it?
Oh, wow.
Yes. He was so the opposite of what we had been coming from. And when I started telling him like, oh, I think I'm sort of PCOS-ish, he like stopped me and he was like, you don't have PCOS.
Oh,
he felt very like, he couldn't tell me what I did have, but he was just like, no, that's not what's going on here. So he was like a breath of fresh air. And I was just like, and up until this point with our last doctor, because I felt so ignored, I was constantly like researching my own things and kind of just like, I felt like I had to stay on top of my care because I didn't feel like
taken care of.
Exactly.
It's fucking exhausting, right?
It's exhausting. And like, you need to be able to trust the person like that is at the helm of this situation. Right. And I am certainly not qualified to be like, dictating my own treatments. Mm-hmm. So, but I didn't trust that like he was seeing it or looking at it or thinking about it. So we made the switch to this new doctor in this new clinic. And I felt like I could like let go of the grip that I had sort of like had on this. Both our previous doctor and this new doctor agreed that we should do genetic testing because nothing had ever taken. That third round that I did, it was a chemical pregnancy. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I had ever been any fraction pregnant. But, we knew it wasn't, I never thought I was really pregnant. It was
right. Okay.
A low HCG number. So our plan was we're going to, we did a fresh stimulation, and we were going to do a fresh transfer and then send the remaining embryos to be genetically tested. So we transferred one, and it was like right around Christmas time. And a couple days after Christmas, we got the results, and it was another chemical pregnancy. Mm. So it was super shitty.
Devastating.
And yes. And then we were going to see Tim's family for the holidays in Florida. And so we like got the results, like, sobbed and flew out the next day. And so while we were in Florida, I was like I had to keep getting blood work done because I had a low HCG. And so we went to like a Quest Diagnostics in Florida, and the number started going up. And it went up, and I was like, what is this? And he was like, the nurse was like, I don't know. They were just like, we don't know, but keep coming back. And the number just kept going up and kept going up. And my doctor was like on vacation. He called me from his vacation, and he's like, don't get excited. Like, has this ever happened? Like a real live baby is born that started out with a low HCG. Yes, but it's very unlikely. Mm-hmm. Then we come home from Florida, and the number is still going up. And this is when I first heard the word ectopic. Mm. And he was like, hopefully that's not what we're dealing with, but we don't know. We don't know what's going on. Then I started bleeding a little bit. And so he was like, okay, come in tomorrow for an ultrasound. And he saw a sac in the right place. And he's like, he was just like, don't think you're not going to have a baby. Don't think this is, but he saw the sac where it was supposed to be. And at that point we were just like, oh, we're so relieved that it's not an ectopic.
Mm-hmm.
And then that night I started having like pain throughout my abdomen. And I was like, what is this? It was like a strange pain, but with an ectopic, it's really, they consider that the pain would be more localized on one side.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't that. It didn't feel like it was only on one side. It was sort of this like strange pain I had never felt before. And it like woke me up in the middle of the night. So I went in the next morning and I was just there to get blood work done because they were just trying to like trace my HCG. And so I saw him and he's like, how's it going? And I was like, I'm having like this pain and it woke me up in the middle of the night. And he was like, no, that doesn't sound right. So he ultrasounded me and he was like, you have to go to the hospital. What he had seen the day before was like something called a pseudo sac, which looks like the egg sac, but it's like basically like a ghost.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess because I had, this was a fresh transfer and I had a lot of eggs. So he's like, that could have just been like a sac where one of the eggs was that had filled up with fluid or something. So anyway, it was a pseudo sac, what he had seen. And it looked like an ectopic, but he couldn't completely tell. So he was like, the hospital's equipment will be able to tell.
Return to the Monsters, Inc. universe in the Disney Plus brand new series, Monsters at Work. It's laughter thereafter as we meet a brand new cast of monsters voiced by incredible stars such as Mindy Kaling, Henry Winkler, and of course, Ben Feldman as Tyler, a recently graduated scarer who quickly learns the only thing horrifying at Monsters, Inc. is how hilarious it is to be part of the team. Billy Crystal and John Goodman are back in their beloved roles as Mike and Sully. Monsters at Work. Original series now streaming, only on Disney Plus.
Clorox knows you want your clothes smelling fresh and clean, but so what happens? That's why we created Clorox fabric sanitizers to freshen up your clothes between washes, pre-treat extra stinky laundry, and make sure every last odor comes out in the wash. Clorox fabric sanitizers take care of all that and eliminate 99% of odor-causing bacteria. Plus, they're bleach-free and safe for all colors and fabrics. When it counts, trust Clorox.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the emergency room and as I was in the cab to the emergency room, like someone from the genetic testing result, someone called me with the genetic testing results and we had sent 8 embryos and 4 of them were genetically normal. So it was just like so bizarre. I was like getting this other like news as I was going to the emergency room.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot to handle at once. Yes. My God.
Yes. And also because I had just planned to like go in for blood work that morning, like I didn't have breakfast. I didn't take a shower. I was just like, I thought I was going and coming right back to my apartment. So at the hospital, I had several different ultrasounds. They still couldn't tell what it was. And, but this was the weird part was they were treating me like I was pregnant because technically I was pregnant, but I kept trying to like explain to them, like, I'm not pregnant. And the nurses were like, how far along are you? And I could see on one of their forms, like they had written like a due date and I had never had a due date. And it was so painful to see that and it did turn out to be an ectopic. It was, to me, this was the first time I was like, this should have been a baby. It just wound up in my fallopian tube instead of my uterus, but like it kept growing and it kept growing and because my numbers just kept going up and up and up. And it was like, if it had just implanted in my uterus, this would have been a baby.
Right.
And seeing the due date on the page, it was the first time I had ever experienced that. And that really like killed me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was there all day. I was like lay on a hospital bed all day while they're trying to figure out what it was. And finally, like in the afternoon, I told Tim to like come. And then there was like some expert radiologist there that like ultrasounded, and he found it. It was in my right fallopian tube. So then they just like, my doctor came in, he was like, I'm going to do the surgery myself. So they just like, I like signed the papers and they just like took me in for surgery, and they took out my fallopian tube and the embryo. It was very intense and strange. And the experience of being in the hospital, being like treated like you're pregnant and talked to like you're pregnant.
That's like soul crushing. Yeah.
Was very, I just had like it, that like stayed with me. And that was the first, after that, that was my first experience of like, I felt like I lost. It wasn't just like a cycle failed. It was like, I lost someone.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I wanted to like, something shifted for me in the hospital, like where it felt like the loss of a person.
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
And I think people, and then after the fact, friends are like, oh, you lost your fallopian tube and whatever. And nobody sort of like got that. Like I felt like I was the only one who understood what had happened.
Right.
But so that was our fourth round. Then, so we were supposed to go on vacation that was like the very beginning of January. By the end of the month, I still hadn't like gotten a period. And I'm healing, and I'm like, you know, taking care of my little incisions and like, trying to like be gentle on my body, but like trying to get back to normal and start exercising again. And we were supposed to go on vacation in February, but I didn't want to go if it meant we couldn't start a new cycle. So I went in to get blood work done so they could see like where I was in my cycle. And my doctor called that night and he's like, you still have HCG in your system. After that surgery, it should have gone down to 0 because there was no pregnancy left.
Right.
And he was like, I don't know what that is, but, and then like a couple nights later, I was like sitting on the couch and I felt this, I don't know how to like describe it other than just like, it was like pain that felt wrong. Like not a normal, appropriate kind of pain. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like, what is this? This was like, I mean, it was like a month to the day after I had this surgery. So I called the like hotline. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And like a doctor called me back and he was like, based on the fact that you still have HCG in your system, like you should come in. So we went to the hospital again. And I'm like, I don't like to take like Tylenol. Like I'm not like a medication person. So I got there and they like offered me morphine and I was like, no. And then like 30 minutes later, I was like, yes, I want the morphine.
You're like, about that morphine, could you just...
Yeah. Is that still available?
That's still a thing? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. It was like, you know, the ectopic pain was like, I don't know. It actually was not that bad. This was like, I've never felt anything like this. And it was just like getting worse and worse and worse. But they ultrasounded me. They had no idea what was going on. And it's like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. And basically they were like, this doctor came in and he was like, we don't know what it is, but like, we have to go back in. And I signed these papers, and because they didn't know what it was, they were like, basically like, will you give us permission to take out anything we need to take out once we're in?
God.
And I was like, I mean, I guess so, but like, what? Like, it was so insane. And like, Allie, first of all, it's like, no one could explain like the infertility in the first place. And like, nobody could explain what the fuck was happening now. Like, I was just like, how can there be no answers? Like it's just that.
Absolutely.
It seems impossible that like you guys can do so much. Like, how can you not tell me anything?
Totally.
So I went back in. So like I was there all night. Then at like, I guess around like 7 a.m., they took me in for surgery again. And they told Tim it would be like 45 minutes. It wound up being like, I think almost like 2 hours.
Oh my gosh. And
after the fact, when I like woke up in recovery, I said to Tim, I was like, did they take out my ovaries? Like, did they take out, what did they, and he was just like, no, you're fine. But like, he didn't know. He didn't know the answer. He just was like, nope, they didn't take anything.
Oh my God.
Which they actually did not. They did not take anything else out. But so what had happened was, I guess, despite taking out my entire fallopian tube and the ectopic, there had been some like residual pregnancy cells that had been left behind.
Okay.
And they had attached to a cyst on my ovary, and the cyst had burst. And I was having like massive, like bleeding, massive internal bleeding, which was what all the pain was about. And this doctor came in and he was basically just like, medically, that was awesome. Like, you know, he was like, it was a very unusual, like they were like, what was that? Like it was a very unusual situation. And he like held his like hand up to his like chest, and he was like, the blood was up to here. And I lost like a quarter of the blood in my body.
Oh my God.
And later that day I was like lying in the bed, and like my doctor called, and I was talking to him, and he's like, and I was like in this like haze of morphine and anesthesia. And he was like, so, you might need a blood transfusion. And like, if so, the odds of contracting HIV are such and such. And I was like, is this happening? Like, what is happening? What,
right.
Like, it was so insane. I did not need a blood transfusion. They did not take out any organs. But it did give me just this sense of like, I felt like the one surgery was like, that's probably good. Like it just made me feel like the ground can and will fall out from underneath you.
Right.
Like, over and over again.
Totally.
And then we did a 5th round, and we used this, now we had like these embryos that we knew were genetically tested. And he was very like, this is going to work. So you should put in 1. If you put in 2, you're going to have twins. And we just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we were like, this is our 5th round. It feels like we need this to work. Like, we were like, we don't want to do anything crazy, but like, he was just like, he felt strongly we should put in 1. Anyway, we decided to put in like the strongest and the weakest, these 2 genetically tested embryos.
Why did you make that decision?
We were kind of just like hedging our bets. Like, it was like, it felt like 1 was not enough, because at this point, like the psychological impact of another failure was more than we could deal with. But also we were like, we don't want to have twins. So it felt like, and he was like, I understand where you're coming from. You guys have been through a lot. He was just like, this is it. This is going to be it. And then it wasn't. We put in 2 genetically tested embryos, and it failed. Oh my God.
This is like too much for you to take.
This is when I was like, oh my God, this is never going to happen. This is never going to happen. And this is when I really started like, we got a dog. This was like the beginning of the end. Like, it was the first time all along I had been like, we're going to get there. And then this was like, we're not gonna, like, oh my God, and also at this point I was like, it was the first time I personally felt like, I can't do this forever. There is only so much I can take. And like, for me, I felt like our insurance was still covering, we had this crazy insurance. So like the money wasn't the issue. I was still in my early 30s. My age wasn't the issue. We didn't have these like clear endpoints that would like tell us to stop. And so now it was like, it's going to be on us to tell ourselves when we can't take anymore. And I think it's very hard to know when to stop, you know?
Totally.
So we kind of decided, like, you know, we had 2 genetically tested embryos left, and we were like, we'll do a round with those. Maybe we'll do a fresh stimulation and try one more time. And then that's it. And I was kind of like, I was thinking like, you know, I can't just like, and at this point, you know, it's like, I hadn't been working for almost a year. This was my entire life. And I was like, I can't just like one day stop doing this and like re-enter the world, like the world as I've known it. Like, I was just like, we had like, if and when we stop, like, we need to like, are we going to move across the country? Are we going to like Tim take a leave of absence and like travel for a few months? Like, what are we can't just like go back to who we were. This is when we like started having these sort of, and then, you know, I was like, started looking into adoption. I was like reading more about it and just sort of like, okay, like, you know, there was a real degree of like, not acceptance, but like recognizing that like, that was the path we were on. And so then we had these 2 genetically tested embryos left, and we did a 6th round, and I got pregnant for the first time ever. And it made no sense, just as it had never made any sense.
Right. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes,
no
right?
Rhyme or reason. Like nothing ever made any sense. It still didn't. Why? And then like all of a sudden I was just like pregnant, and all along I was like, who is this person? Like, who is this person that like was the one to make it, you know? Like,
so you had put in 2?
We put in 2 genetically tested embryos, and I got pregnant with one of them.
Yeah.
And like that was like, that was that. Yeah. And we like didn't find out if we were having a boy or a girl. And it was weird. It's like, after all of that, like I refused to have a baby shower. I didn't like, even now it's like, I self-identify more, like less as a, like, I know that I am a mother, but for so long, it was so painful to look at all of the women in the world that got to be mothers and to feel like they all had each other and they understood each other, and like nobody understood me, and nobody like, I still, it's weird. It's like, I know I have children, but I don't see myself in that way, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. Yeah.
Like mother to me was always like the other, you know, it was always somebody else.
I think that makes perfect sense. After all you've been through, you know, and infertility never leaves you even after you have a kid.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And even now, like, you know, before I like post a picture of like my kid on Instagram, like I think about the fact that like, that might be hard for somebody else to see, you know, like it's forever. Like, it's like that, like the treatment is over, but the
scars remain.
Yeah, the scars remain.
Totally. I always say like it scars your heart and it sticks to your bones. Like it's just never, and I still feel like, you know, I'll never leave this community. This is what I was like meant to do apparently. And, you know, it's just, I think that's why the people who are in this community are so like wonderful and empathetic, is because this is like an experience like no other, you know, it really like profoundly changes people.
Truly. And like, it's like listening to your podcast and like thinking of myself being home alone in an empty apartment all those months. And I would leave to go to an acupuncture appointment or to the doctor's office or to my therapist. But like, I would have looked forward to every Wednesday to listen to your podcast.
Oh,
no, but it's like that, like it was the loneliest best place in the world.
Yeah.
And so I just like what you have done is like, it's really amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you're on it now.
Yeah, me too.
So wait, but that's not the end of your story, right?
No. So yeah. So anyway, I was the whole time I was like, who is this person? Like, I want to know you because you are something else. And we had a daughter and her name's Hazel and she is something else.
Mm-hmm.
It like, I don't know, like that it was her somehow, it like makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. But were you ever able to relax during that pregnancy? I mean, you said you didn't have a baby shower, right? You didn't.
Yep.
It's like, I think people can really relate to that pregnancy after infertility. It's just not, I mean, not to say it's not wonderful and you're not so grateful, but it's not the same.
He and I both learned like how much we really wanted it. And like, we really, really, really wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel lucky that we wanted it the same amount. Like neither of us ever had to like convince the other to keep going, or like nobody was like, I'm ready to be done before the other.
Right.
And I like, don't take that for granted because I think it's a lot. It's a huge toll. And like we spent like all but one of the first years of our marriage doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, towards the end, my therapist was like, you could get to a point where this is going to do like irreparable damage. And so, keep that in mind.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, it's an intense amount of pressure and stress on a marriage. It felt like a lark that it happened at all. And we didn't know what it would take or what would be possible again. So we did a 7th round of IVF, and we did a fresh transfer. We put in 2 3-day embryos and both took, and we have twins.
Oh my God. So how did that feel to get those results?
It was like, we found out, so we got the positive pregnancy test. We found out I was pregnant. And like the number was like a little high, and I was like, ooh. And Hazel at this point was 15 months old. She was still a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the number, like, as we kept doing like those initial blood tests, like the week I kind of said to Tim, I was like, I think we just need to acknowledge, and we'd had so much loss, and like we put in 2 several times. These were untested, like Hazel's round. We had 2 tested ones that turned into, but like the numbers were high. And I was like, I think we just need to like acknowledge, like, this could be twins. And he was like, no.
It's so wild. Did you do anything differently in terms of your protocol that time? I'm sure people listening are like, what did she change that
honestly
worked?
No, like, or, the last time, like that stimulation, I had almost hyperstimulated at the end. So he was very like delicate and deliberate with the stimulation. He was like very proud of himself for the stimulation because I got far less eggs. And like the other times I had done stimulations, I got a lot of eggs, and I don't know that they were like great quality. So this time we got like, previously we'd gotten like 20 eggs, and this time we got like 8. And I was like, oh, that feels like, it felt like, compared to the 20 that seemed so promising, but then like none of those 20 took.
Right. It's not quantity always, right? Quality.
Yes. So this was like, we got far less eggs. And honestly, I think it was like my body had, because it had been pregnant, it knew that was it the whole time. Like my body just wouldn't accept anything. And I guess because it had the experience, it remembered and accepted them.
Did the right thing.
It did what it's like.
That's such a cool way of looking at it. Yeah.
But I mean, these were like, it was a day 3. They were untested. It was the morning of my 36th birthday. We went in to get the ultrasound to see what was in there. And my doctor walks in the door and he's like, so, your numbers are kind of high. And I was like, no, I know. And he's like, okay, just like, we're going to look, we're going to see what's in there. And Tim's in the room with me, and he just like does the wand, and he's like, your college tuition just got a lot more expensive.
Oh my God.
And like I still don't have the words. Like,
right.
Like, and Tim was like, holy shit. And I was like, and honestly, like, part of me that day, it was like a hard day. And I was like, I've just wanted to be like a normal family. And like having now, we're going to have like 3 babies at once.
Oh my
like,
God.
we're like, they were born like Hazel was still 1 when they were born. And all of a sudden I felt so overwhelmed, and like, how are we ever going to do this? The whole thing from start to finish was just like the craziest, like,
this is so crazy.
None of it made sense. Except other than just like, these are like our 3 kids, and like, right. These are the ones, like, these are supposed to be our 3 kids. And
oh my God.
We are not like a normal family. People are just like, holy shit. Like, you know, we're like a hot mess.
You ever get comments like, wow, you're fertile, or, you know, like, which is so ironic, right?
Right. It's, yes, certainly not fertile, but it was a very messy ride, and it's still kind of messy, but like now it's a great messy. Yeah.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for listening. And thanks again to Amy for this incredible story. I'm so happy for you and the 3 babes. So guys, if you are looking for extra support, please come check out Fertility Rally. It's fertilityrally.com, and we're on Instagram at Fertility Rally as well. It is a place for community. It's a content hub, and we've curated events. So we've got support groups on Monday nights and on Wednesday nights for infertility and for pregnancy and motherhood after infertility. We would love for you guys to come and join us and check us out. We also have lots of great events coming up, so go to our website and check those out as well. You can get on our wait list to become a member, and there's lots of stuff you don't have to be a member to enjoy as well. So let me know if you have any questions. Hope to see you there at Fertility Rally, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.
There's just something about getting away to the Smoky Mountains. Step out on a hiking trail, zoom across a zip line, splash at water parks, shop till you drop, and say hello to the statue of our hometown hero, Dolly Parton. Discover the thrill of visiting the Smoky Mountains and reconnect with those you love the most in Sevierville, Tennessee. Learn more at visitsevierville.com. That's visit SEVIERVILLE.com.
Anyone can be ready for back to school, but with Staples Connect, you can be more than ready. Like, I got everything from my classroom and saved a ton ready. We've got more backpacks, more pens, and more supplies than you ever thought possible. So double knot your shoes, gas up the minivan, and smear war paint on your face. Staples has everything you need and more for the new school year. Let's do this. Just visit your nearest Staples store or go to staplesconnect.com for inspiration.